maybe those like poisonous rats from the last season learned how to fly. Hey guys, it's Mikinna, and today I am making my final Stranger Things theories video before the season comes out. So I was originally going to wait until it got closer to the first part of the season being released, but since the trailer just came out and there was so much information in the trailer, I'm giving this to you guys now. We're doing this now. But that is the only disclaimer description of this video that you're getting, because I have so much information to get to. This video is already going to be like 10 million years long, I know, because I just talk forever, but we need to get into this right now because there is so much stuff we need to talk about. Okay, so we're gonna go in order. I'm just gonna go from like the first part of the trailer until the very end. The first thing is this like really creepy voiceover. It says, "You've broken everything. Your suffering is almost at an end." Now, whose voice is that? I have no idea. Actually, that's a lie. I think I do have an idea, but it doesn't come into play until the very end of the trailer. So we'll get there. Stay with me. The first thing that you see though, as far as like visuals go, is like the little machine thingy that they used in season 3 to open the gate. I think this is the Russians' machine. So like someone is opening the gate yet again, obviously. I feel like that's kind of a given that it's open. And then they show this clock again, and this clock has been shown in other like teasers and stuff before, so I know that it's important. And the time on the clock this time is 12, so either noon or midnight, but the last time that we saw the clock, I think it was at 3 o'clock, which the 3 o'clock makes some sense because there's a little bit of meaning behind it. 3 o'clock makes sense. 12 doesn't, because like midnight or noon, it's probably not going to be noon. Nobody's doing anything in the middle of the day. All of the scary stuff happens at night, so I'm assuming that it's midnight. But it could also be like a timer, because like when a timer goes all the way around, it's like finished, you know. And since the like creepy voiceover says your suffering is almost at an end, and a lot of like the theme of this trailer is like you've run out of time, this could be like they're timed with something where they're like, oh, you have a week to solve this problem, and if you don't solve it within this week, everybody dies, you know, like not like that, but like they're given some time limit on something. And then the next thing that we see in this like first part of the trailer is this little like zombie looking thing. It's a close-up of its face. It looks like eyes. The thing that stood out to me about this was there was a teaser that came out a while ago. I don't remember when it came out, but it said something about it not being the Demogorgon. Like the creators of the show were like, it's not the Demogorgon, like we are adding in new villains. But again, this little creature thingy comes back into play at the end of the trailer, so we'll come back to it. So this next part shows Max at Billy's like grave. She says, she's like, Billy, I don't even know if you can hear this, but ever since you've left, everything's been a total disaster. For a while we tried to be happy, normal, but it's impossible. That makes sense. I mean, obviously what she's saying makes sense. The first thing that we see, again, as far as my screenshots go, is like a dead body with the police and an ambulance, and they make it look like Robin, Steve, and Dustin are looking at this dead body, but sometimes they edit these things together to make it look like two scenes are connected or like happening at the same time when they're actually not. So I kind of have to take this with a grain of salt if they're actually involved or not. It kind of looks like they know whose body it is, or like they're there for a reason. And also in the bird's eye view of the scene, there's like a crowd of people, which makes me think that a lot of people know who it is or think they know who it is, or it was like public knowledge. In my head, I was thinking like a missing persons case, like how people get like the public looking for this person if somebody goes missing and things like that, and then when they're like, oh, we found a body, people care, you know, because the person was public knowledge that they were missing. Now that I'm actually saying that out loud and talking through that, that connects to something else at the end of the trailer, so we'll get back to that. And the last little chunk of this part of the trailer is Max in the hallway of the high school looking at this clock, again, in the wall, which I don't understand why it's in the wall or like what this clock has to do with anything, but it's making me think that it's more of a timer than a clock. You know, like in like sports, how they have like the timer. Like in a gym for basketball games, they have timers on the wall, like the scoreboard. You know what I'm talking about. Like that? Okay, next little part. music starts. The song in the background is called Separate Ways by Journey. Great song, by the way. The song is about people going their separate ways, obviously, if that wasn't obvious, which could be like symbolic of half of the people moving away out of Hawkins. Maybe. I feel like that's too surface level though. And the specific lyrics that they used from this song in the trailer are, "Here we stand, worlds apart, hearts broken in two, sleepless nights losing ground, I'm reaching for you." I don't know what that means. I can't find any underlying meaning as much as I feel like there is some. I don't know what it is. Anyways, on to the next part. They show Russia, like prison vibes, dark, scary, probably where Hopper is. But these specific clips of this Russian prison, or like wherever they are in Russia, are shown when the lyrics from the song, "Here we stand, worlds apart, hearts broken in two," are playing in the background. So originally I was like, oh, it's just the separation of the people back in Hawkins and the Byers and 11 moving to California, like that separation. But I feel like the important separation is Hopper and 11. I feel like those lyrics wouldn't overlap with those scenes if it wasn't intentional. I feel like Hopper is in Russia and like trying to gain information, and then when he reunites with 11, be able to help her. And then we see Mike and 11 roller skating. Aw, cute. Mike goes to visit 11 in California. She doesn't go back to Hawkins until later in the season, I don't think. Okay, next chunk of the trailer is another voiceover. And this voice is familiar. He says, "I relocated you guys far from Hawkins because I thought you'd be safe. A war is coming and I'm afraid your friends in Hawkins are very much in the eye of the storm." And then Elle says that she doesn't have her powers, and he responds with, "I don't know how to say it other than just to say it. Without you, we can't win this war." Well, as far as visuals go, the scenes that we get clips of during this voiceover, Joyce gets a very large package from Russia, and they've showed this clip in teasers before, and I really think that this is the scene where she realizes Hopper is still alive. She's like, "I'm getting this mysterious package from Russia. Who could it be from? What could it be? I don't know what's in the box, but I feel like it's probably from Hopper." Then we see Mike, Jonathan, and Will in a house that the helicopter shows up at, and I'm assuming that this is the Byers' house in California. But the one thing I noticed about this scene is that they noticed the helicopter there, but they don't look scared of it. They look surprised. They're like, "Why is this helicopter here?" But they're not like scared like they were expecting it. But they also don't look like they were expecting it for a good reason. They're like, okay, this can't be good, but like, what is this doing here? And then again with the voiceovers lining up with the scenes that they show with it, when he says a war is coming, they show like the people back in Hawkins, which is Robin, Nancy, Dustin, Steve, Lucas, and Max, walking up to the Creel house, which I really think that this Creel house is the center of their issues this season. Why would they overlap that with the voiceover saying a war is coming if the war didn't start in this house? Like, the next clip that they show is of like that group of people in the house, and they all have their flashlights, and their flashlights are flickering, and they're looking up at this light bulb in this house. It's just like this bare light bulb hanging from the ceiling. When you look at this picture, does it look familiar? Does the setting look similar to something we have seen before? If you remember way back in the first season, and I think a little bit in the second season, the shed that was in the Byers' backyard where Will went missing originally had a light bulb that looked the exact same. The vibes were the exact same. It was a dark room with a singular light bulb, and the light bulb flickered, and then Will was taken. I don't think that the similarities in those two settings is coincidental whatsoever. I feel like both places hold some kind of weird energy and are important. As 11 in the voiceover says that she doesn't have her powers, it shows her being taken away by a prison transport van and Mike watching, so I'm assuming that this is happening in California. I don't think she's actually going to prison. I don't think it's like the police that are taking her away. I think it's some sort of like government official of some sort. But the only thing that I noticed about this specific scene is that she looks sad to be leaving Mike, but she doesn't look like restrained by anything, which means that she willingly went into this van. She wasn't like kidnapped or anything. The next thing we see is the County Line Cafe, which is technically the old Benny's Burgers. They make it look like the conversation that's happening in the voiceover is happening at this cafe. We see that Doc Owens, or Sam Owens, or whatever you want to call him, the old doctor from season 2, is the one that 11 is talking to, and I feel like they're using old settings and like old scenery and stuff for a reason. Benny's Burgers, originally in the first season, is kind of the first major scene of 11's powers. Like, it's the first time we see her use them. It's a very monumental scene in the first season, so I feel like that's kind of foreshadowing how important the conversation between Doc Owens and 11 is. And then this was kind of like a last minute thought that I had right before I filmed this video, that the guards standing outside of the cafe look like they're like supervising this conversation. It could have been that like those guards are who took 11 out of California, like in the prison van, and they took her to Hawkins. So I don't know if it's like the government or whoever is running the lab bringing 11 back to Hawkins, or if Dr. Owens is kind of like running the show and is like, hey, I need you to go get this girl out of California and bring her here. Maybe those guards standing outside are who took her out of California. Okay, so this next part, I don't know how to feel about this next part. I feel like it's very important. It just like really quickly flashes to this scene of like lots of lightning, but right before this clip, there is a picture that flashes for like a millisecond. Here's the screenshot. Here's what it looks like. There are these little, like, I don't know what these things even are, to be completely honest with you, but there's little numbers next to each one, and they're written in the format of time. I'll put the numbers on the screen so you can see them, but I feel like they would not put this in for a split second if it wasn't important, because they were like, we want to put it in because it's important to the season, but we can't put it in for longer than like a millisecond, because if people notice it, they're gonna know too much. I don't know, I might just be thinking way too far into it, but I don't know what it means. But I feel like the numbers have to have meaning, so I added them, was the first thing I did. I added each side, and I got 3 and then 161. That holds no significance to me. I tried Googling it, and the only thing that came up was like something to do with the military, but I feel like that's not it. And then I tried adding it like time, like 60 minutes equals an hour, so that I could get like a specific time or like amount of time, and I got 541. I Googled it, and there's a really popular Bible verse that says, if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles, which kind of could make sense, but I feel like that's not it. It's really just driving me crazy, because I feel like it's significant to something, because they wouldn't have put it in if it wasn't. And again, with the whole time thing, but then after that there's a little clip of the storm again with bats. There are bats a lot in the trailer, and the only connection that I could kind of make to that was the rats in season 3, because like, aren't there some like similarities between rats and bats? Maybe like in real life. I feel like they're connected. I don't know if they're just connected in my head, but like maybe those like poisonous rats from the last season learned how to fly. The next thing we see is Nancy and Steve saying, see you on the other side, to each other. They look like they're about to like climb down a hole of some sort. And then it looks like the entire group of people that's in Hawkins riding bikes into a trailer park. It looks like the entire trailer park is like infected by the Upside Down or whatever. And like in the past, things from the Upside Down could enter the real world. Like they had Demogorgons and the Mind Flayer and stuff would enter the real world, but people from the real world couldn't really go into the Upside Down without like special equipment, and you know, it was like super dangerous. But now it looks like the Upside Down has like completely taken over. Either that, or people have figured out how to get into the Upside Down without like dying. I feel like a lot of this season is going to be taking place in the Upside Down, because it just seems like it's a lot easier for people to get into it now. The next voiceover we get is from Hopper, and he says, I was convinced I was put here for some other reason. Maybe I could still help, even if it's the last thing I do. The scenes that are shown when this voiceover is happening are mainly those of Hopper in Russia, so I feel like when he's saying I was convinced I was put here for some other reason, he's talking about in Russia. From the last season, it looks like Russia is a little bit more knowledgeable about the Upside Down and everything than the US is, so he could be relaying all of this information back to the US. And then they show a Demogorgon attacking Hopper. Again, the way they cut the scenes, it could not be attacking Hopper, but they make it look like this Demogorgon is in the same place as Hopper, and I don't think I got a a very good screenshot of it, but you get the idea. There is a Demogorgon in Russia. At the end of the last season, they showed that the Russians had taken a Demogorgon. So I guess it could be that one Demogorgon that they kept, but I feel like they probably have other ones. The next thing that I want to talk about is the words that come up on the screen. They say every ending has a beginning. I mean, which is true. That checks out. That's how time works. But I really think that this season is going to be focused on going back and like talking about why all this happened, how it was created, why 11 was chosen. Okay, and then the scenes that they show clips from. The first one looks like Dustin, Lucas, and Steve holding Max, who looks like scared or hurt or something. This picture is kind of dark, so it's kind of hard to see. It looks like they're in the cemetery that Billy is buried at and where Max was at the beginning of the trailer, which comes up again later in the trailer, so we'll come back to that. The next thing we see is a picture of a new character. This is Eddie. He's an 80s metalhead, but he's like still nerdy and into D&D, and he's around the same age as like Nancy, Jonathan, and Steve. He looks like he's the leader of the Hellfire Club just from this picture. He seems like he knows what he's doing. He's going to be a very powerful tool for the people to use because he's probably really knowledgeable about D&D and like knows what can kill what creatures, so he probably helps a lot. Or somebody could see his knowledge about the topic as a threat and like try to hurt him. The opposite side could try to weaponize his knowledge and stuff like that. Him being really knowledgeable about it could be a good thing or a bad thing. And then the last picture before the next voiceover is of 11 back at the lab, and she looks younger, so I'm assuming that this is a flashback, and maybe she like flashes back and like reflects on her past and how she originally gained her powers in the first place as a way to try to gain them back. The next voiceover is from Dustin. There's a lot of voiceovers in this trailer, and he says, people say Hawkins is cursed and they're not way off. Obviously, there's bad vibes in Hawkins. We all know that. This next picture of Max floating took me off guard the first time I watched it, but as I've been thinking about it, I feel like this happens before the clip a couple minutes ago that Steve, Dustin, and Lucas were like kind of like holding Max because she looked like scared or like she got hurt. So I feel like this happens before, and I don't know why she's like levitating. I really don't see Max having powers. I feel like they're just not gonna do that because that just doesn't really make any sense. Maybe somebody else's powers are manipulating her into flying, and like she seems fine with it, but the three guys look like terrified. If she was like scared or felt like she was like out of control and somebody else was manipulating her body, she'd be like flailing around and like freaking out, but she's not doing that. She's like very peacefully floating into the air. That makes me think that it might be her doing it. The clip after that shows 11 with her powers back, so we know that she gets them back. Obviously, I wasn't concerned that she wasn't gonna get them back. She kind of has to, because without them there wouldn't be a show. But she looks like she's back in the lab and her head is shaved again, but I guess she does go back to the lab to get her powers back. Then we see Eddie rocking out in the Upside Down. I don't really get the reason for him like playing guitar in the Upside Down. Like it says he is like a metalhead and like into music and stuff like that, so like that's probably part of his character, but he's in the Upside Down, so I feel like the music is important to the Upside Down, so like maybe he's like playing music to distract the monsters or something. Or does Should I Stay or Should I Go from The Clash come back? Does that make a comeback? Now, this picture, this old dude, he's got some eye troubles. I didn't know who this was, so I did some research on it. Apparently, this character's name is Victor Creel, who lives in the Creel house. He committed a murder, which could tie back to that police scene of them having a dead body and like all those people out there watching. I guess that could be from the past, like showing a flashback of the murder that this guy committed. But anyways, he commits this murder and then gets admitted into a psychiatric hospital, and I guess cuts his eyes out, or like somebody else cut them out. I don't know why he doesn't have eyes, but most of the people in Hawkins probably assume that the Creel house is haunted, which is probably why the kids go and explore there in the first place. Also, the other really interesting thing about this guy specifically is that the actor who plays this character in the show is the same actor who played Freddy Krueger in Nightmare on Elm Street, which that movie comes back into play in a couple seconds later in the trailer, so I'll come back to this. Okay, this next picture is of Max. She looks like she's in the Upside Down, but pay attention to the middle of this picture. There are people standing there, and it's like open and blue, and she's all in this like red scariness. It looks dreamlike. Last season when 11 went into Billy's memory and like was looking at those memories of them on the beach with like their mom and stuff, this kind of gives off a similar vibe. I feel like this is kind of like a dream-like type thing. Like, I don't think she's dreaming, but I don't think this is like real life either. And I say that because of the tie to Nightmare on Elm Street. And also, this next picture that I'm going to show you, as soon as I saw this, I immediately was like, that is Freddy Krueger. It's not actually Freddy Krueger, but there is a scene, the composition of this shot looks the same as one in the Nightmare on Elm Street, and I looked everywhere for it, and I couldn't find a screenshot of the picture from the movie. But take my word for it, I remember it. And again, if you've never seen Nightmare on Elm Street, spoiler alert, huge spoiler alert for that movie. Freddy Krueger kills people in their dreams. Like, that is how he kills people. It's like these kids fall asleep and then they go into this like dream, like they're not totally dreaming, because if they die in this dream, they die in real life, which I feel like is going to be similar to this scenario. It's not exactly real life. They're going into some other dimension, some other form of consciousness or something, but like if they die there, they still die in real life. The last thing, the very end of the trailer, we have made it to the end. We hear this creepy voiceover again say, "It's time, you have lost." And then we see Vecna. The Stranger Things social media accounts have said that this is Vecna. I did not just pull that name out of nowhere. The only time Vecna has been mentioned is in the episode titles, because episode 2 of this season is called Vecna's Curse. Vecna is a part of Dungeons and Dragons. It's an undead wizard with godlike status. I'm also assuming that that could be the creature that is talking in the voiceover. So I guess this creature's like taking over. Yeah, I also think that's where the eyes came from at the very beginning of the trailer. Maybe that's where the eyes come in from Mr. Creel. So maybe Mr. Creel cut his eyes out and gave them to Vecna. I don't know, y'all. Anyways, that was a lot of information in like 3 minutes and 16 seconds, I think, or something like that. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe and turn on the bell for notifications so that you never miss a post, and I will see you guys next Sunday with a new video.